High five. So how you doing? What? One grade. I get one grade. This is supposed to be innovative. Come on. This side of the room. How you doing? Yeah. Conference good so far? Yeah, but the wife and best friends don't count. How about this side? Everything okay? Oh, man. Bangkok's got you totally wiped out, man. Come on, one more time. How are you doing? Okay, there we go. All right, got to get a little energy here. We're going to talk about innovation. If you want to be innovative, you can't be this, whatever this is. So you got to get more coffee, and you got to have fun, because honest to goodness, if there's any stress in your life, if there's anything that's keeping you distracted, if you don't give yourself permission to be creative and inventive, you're not going to be. And that's why I'm kind of goofing around a little bit, because I really want you to have fun with this, because it really will work if you practice it. How are you doing? You got a smile. See, look at that smile. There you go. That's what I want. Innovative thinking. Let's talk about this. I work with companies all over the world, Asia, India, Europe, and the United States. There's an international law that if your cell phone goes off during a presentation, did you know that? No, I was kidding. See, I like it. See, he's already getting innovative. I like it. There we go. Yeah, come on in. Come on in. Here, there's room up here. No, come on, serious. The fire department's not here, so you can come in. This is my resume. Yeah, I've done a lot of really crazy stuff. I've developed the first computer to save a human life. I developed the first voice recognition, which eventually became Dragon Dictate and Siri. I developed the first voice synthesizing, and I worked with X10 to develop the first home automation. So I was on the cutting edge of a lot of technology, and it was really innovative, especially in the 80s. And then since then, as you heard, I wrote the Social Media Bible. It's an 800-page book, hit #1 on Amazon, and I teach top executives about social media. But let me tell you why we're doing this and we're not doing social media. Because if you were still talking about social media, come on, did you just get out of grade school? Social media is here. Everybody knows what it is. We all know how to use the tools. We know what Facebook does. We know how to use Facebook pay-per-click. We know what Google AdWords. And that's the reason that I'm doing this, is because every single person in the room knows every single one of the tools now, because nothing really has changed over the last 4 or 5 years. The only thing that will differentiate you from every other company on the planet and every other individual is how creative you are. And you know that that's the truth. The more innovative a company is with its marketing, its advertising, and its communication, the more it's going to stand out above the noise. And that's the only thing that's going to differentiate you, not learning more about social media tools. So that's what happened to me. I realized I had to start teaching something different that could differentiate people and companies. Let's take a look at the words. Innovation. Definition is the action and process of innovating a new method, idea for products. Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't even know what that means. That's the actual definition. Creativity, here it comes. The use of the imagination, original ideas, especially in production of an artistic work. But that can apply to everything. Voice recognition wasn't an artistic work, but it's in every single person's pocket today. So that's innovation. And if you look at some of the things that Steve Jobs and Apple had done over the last 4 decades, you'll know what I'm talking about. And invention, it's the action of inventing something, typically a process, device, or design. And what that means is that just because you have a good idea, it has absolutely no value whatsoever unless you know how to put it into practice. You have to be brave enough and know how to take that idea and to actually turn it into something valuable. Because Thomas Edison once said, 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. And that means we all get good ideas, but if you don't do anything with them, then they're not worth any, they have no value. So here's what I'm going to talk about and what I'm not going to talk about. I got about 45 minutes. I can't teach you to be Steve Jobs, but I'm going to give it a shot. But you know what I am going to do is I'm going to give you the tools. I'm actually going to give you a formula that you can use to be more innovative. It's really simple. It's called the 3 C's. And it's like riding a bicycle. It's like playing a piano. It takes a little bit of work at first, but then you get good at it, and you get better at it. And then you get to the point where I'm at, where ideas, I woke up 2 o'clock yesterday morning. 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had to get my pad to write down a whole list of brand new ideas. They just keep coming. And that's great, because that's what's going to make us successes, not only in our companies, but us personally. I'm going to talk about your brain. Your brain. Is it okay if I do that? No, we could talk about everybody's brain and how your brain messes with your head, how you are looking for solutions but just can't see them even though they're right in front of us. The other thing is I'm going to give you that formula so that if you do these 3 steps, I promise you will be more innovative. Absolutely promise it always works. And then I'm going to give you a bunch of examples. Now you're going to think, oh, this is all about you. Well, yeah, it's my presentation, so I can do that. But really what I'm doing is I'm showing you some really simple, clever ideas that I've come up with over the years to show you that they don't have to be MP3 players and iPads. They can be simple solutions. And if I can show you the simple ones, you will get the confidence to develop more impressive solutions. Let's talk about our brain. 98% of all grade school children say that they feel that they're creative. Less than 2% of high school students say that they feel that they're creative. What happened? What happened to us from the time we were a child to the time we become young adults where we lose our creativity? Let me tell you what happens. It's our parents' fault. Of course it is. Everything that goes wrong in our lives are our parents' fault. And it's our grandparents' fault. And it's our priest and reverend and everybody that we trust, teachers. They make us not innovative. They want us to conform. They want us to stand in line like everybody else, wear the same clothes, talk the same way, be quiet when everyone else is quiet. And I say that because that was a huge problem for me. I was never quiet. I was the only kid in my neighborhood that was asked to leave Catholic school in 3rd grade. And it was unanimous, by the way, the entire, yeah. So what they do is our parents and the people that we trust believe that they can get us to conform and we can fit in better, that we would have a more successful life because we wouldn't be fighting with everybody all of the time. So that creativity, the thing of doing something different and looking at things differently is deliberately taking out of us, and we did it to our children as well. But now we have to get that back. It's still there. It's just been hidden. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. What is it? Batman, yeah, right? What else? Ah, dude. Now, by the way, if you've seen any of these before, don't try to impress everybody, but he actually saw the question mark. Yeah, some people think it's a ninja star, the things that you throw. Anybody into Kung Fu? Nobody? Good. Good. We got a high-level audience here. Yeah, and most people think it's a Batman signal. No, it's actually a question mark. And the reason a lot of people don't see the question mark first is because ever since we're children, we were taught to look for information black on a white background. Have you ever seen a book with white letters printed on black paper? No, that would be totally ridiculous. So our brains have been trained never to look for the information in white, only in black. So when you look at this, if the solution was the question mark, there's a pretty good chance that you would never see that question mark no matter how much you looked at it. We've been trained not to. Let me give you some other examples. Which A or B? Now again, if you've seen this before, because I'm using psychological examples, if you've seen it, don't shout it out. Which one is A, B? Which one is darker? Are they the same? Is one lighter, one darker? Which one do you think? Let's see it this way. Which one is darker? A. A. Show of hands, A. Okay, show of hands, B. Show of hands, I don't know. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at that. They're absolutely identical. Can you believe that those were identical? Hang on. Let's go back. There we go. Do they look identical? No. Here's why. Our brains, again, is messing with our heads. It is telling us that if that cylinder is in that corner and it's casting a shadow, that has to be darker. B has to be darker because there's a shadow on it, and A and B should be the same color if they were in the same light. See, so our brains are making assumptions. They're jumping ahead. Our brains are messing with our heads. So if we try to find this solution, you can look at it for hours, and you will never see the solution even though it's right in front of us. And the reason I'm showing you these, I'll show you a couple of more, is because if you can understand how your brain is preventing you, all of these years of training, is preventing you from seeing the answer, it's going to be easier to see the answer because you're going to learn to look at things completely different. And that's where the solutions are. Because if it wasn't looking completely different, someone else would have already seen it, and you wouldn't be able to come up with it. So you have to force yourself to think differently. Which car is bigger? Yeah, the one kind of towards the center? Yeah, right? Center? Well, let me show you something. There's the same size. Now I'm just going to back it up. They're identical. All those photographs of the cars are 100% exactly the same. But again, our brains are messing with our heads. And the reason is that we know what perspective is. We know that something that's further away needs to be smaller, and if it's not smaller, then it has to be larger. And that messes with us. So, again, if you were looking at this image and you were trying to determine the size of those objects, you would immediately jump to the fact that that one is bigger than the one in the foreground, when in fact it's not. You getting this? You seeing how your brain messes with your head? This is a bus. 100% of all grade school children can answer this question. Nearly zero adults can. The bus is at the curb. It's going to pull away from the curb. Does it move to the right or does it move to the left? Left. Show of hands, left. Okay, show of hands, right. Show of hands, straight up. Okay, you got issues. But I like that. Here's why the kids didn't get it all the time. The kids know that there was no door. There were just windows. It had to be the driver's side of the bus. So if that's the driver's side of the bus, it can only pull off to the left. Kids instinctually know that because their brains aren't messing with their heads. They're open to everything. Okay. Black dots. I need a volunteer. Don't be afraid. I'll pick you. The one who's hiding the most. Okay. How many? You can do it from there. How many black dots do you see? Let's try it on this side of the room. Maybe it's better. Here, you and I, we've already bonded. That should make us bond more because I didn't take it. How many black dots? Anybody else want to? Huh? So you don't see any black dots? No, they're not moving. This is a JPEG. It's not a GIF. It's a JPEG. I'm not trying to trick you. A lot. That's exactly the right answer. But you see dots appearing and disappearing, even though this really is a still image. Let me tell you what's happening. Your brain is messing with your head again. In this image, what happens is the light goes into your eye. It goes through your retina. It bounces off your, goes through your cornea. It bounces off your retina. Yes. And there's rods and cones. Cones process color. Rods process black and white. What happens is when they get stimulated by a photon, trust me, I'm not going to go any deeper than this. The little nerve endings get a chemical that connects that nerve that says, hey, I'm seeing something, in millions of these little things in your eye. It takes, do I have it up here? Yeah. It takes between 10 and 100 milliseconds for that chemical to clear each one of the little nerves in your eye so that you can see a fresh image. So just for a moment, you're still seeing the black from the black squares. And that's why you're seeing black dots that simply disappear. The faster they disappear, the better your eyes are at clearing that chemical from the ends of the nerves. But here's another example of you really can see black dots, but there are no black dots to see. Understand that everything that your brain processes is not 100% correct. It's what we assume to be correct. And we have to remember that, and we have to change it. Okay, typical elephant, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And again, if you've seen it, don't ruin it. It's not a typical elephant. How many legs does it have? It actually has... Okay, we got a prize for this guy. Kia Optima, let's see. Can we not hand that down to him? Oh, and a Cessna airplane. Yeah, He deserves at least that. Yeah, the answer is a lot. And the answer also is 2. Many. Those legs are all messed up. But you know what? If I didn't pause that slide and we just moved on, you wouldn't have seen anything wrong with that elephant. You would assume that that elephant picture was completely normal. Why? Your brain saw it, it immediately processed elephant, and it moved on, and the processing stopped. Don't let the processing stop. Sometimes, just beyond what you think you see is where the answers actually are hiding, right in front of you. 3 C's. I was asked to make this presentation as far back as 2001. It was the owner of a speakers bureau, and he said, Lon, you're the most innovative person I've ever met. Can you do a presentation on innovation? I said, yeah, give me 2 weeks. 3.5 years later, I was still trying to figure out what this process, what happens in my head. You don't actually want to know what happens in my head. But the parts that I can share with you is this. Is there actually a process to be creative? Is there anything that we can do as individuals, can practice to train our brains to become more innovative? And the answer is yes, and I called it the 3 C's. And now I'm going to teach it to you. Collect, calculate, communicate. By the way, if you want these slides, I'm going to take all these slides. Most speakers don't like to give away their slides as intellectual property. I'm cool with that. Just go to lonsafko.com, myname.com. There's a black band. It says access. Click on it. You're going to put in your email address. I'll send you a password, and you'll have all these slides. And tomorrow's slides will be there as well. So let's talk about each one of these. Collect. What we're going to do to become innovative is to collect information. We don't know the answer, so especially to complex issues. Now, I say issues. They don't have to be problems. When Steve Jobs invented the MP3 player, by the way, he didn't. The iPod was invented by many different companies. He made it better. He made it sexy. And he convinced us that we couldn't live our lives without one. And that's what Steve was really good at. It's not always a problem that we're trying to solve. Sometimes we're trying to use innovation just to do something fun or to better our lives. Keep that in mind. So when we collect, you got to be eyesy. You got to look everywhere. Don't look in your industry for a solution to a problem. If you don't write down anything else, you have to understand this. If there was a solution to a problem that's perplexing your company, your industry, someone would have already known about it. You have to look outside. Henry Ford was having a really tough time. What is Henry Ford famous for? Cars. Production. And more specifically, the assembly line. Right? Now, by the way, the assembly line had been around for almost 100 years, but he applied it to automobiles. What he was doing is he had 30 engineers working on one car, and it took 1 month to build that car. He knew that he couldn't afford to do that if a car was going to become a consumer product. So totally frustrated. He contacted the Chevrolet brothers and the Oldsmobile brothers, and he contacted all the different car companies. There was no solution in his industry. So he gave up one day, took his lunch, went out to a farm, under a tree. No, this isn't where the apple hits him in the head and he discovers gravity. That's somebody else. And he's watching the potatoes go up the conveyor belt. And he's thinking, wow, if instead of a potato, if I put a car on the belt, I could hire unskilled labor. I moved the car to them. And he was producing a new Model T car once every 60 seconds. He went from once a month to once every 60 seconds because of a potato conveyor belt. Anybody want to know why the Model T was the most famous car? Because models A through S sucked. They were terrible. It wasn't until he got to the T, so don't be afraid of failing. That's something else in innovation. Not everything works perfectly the first time. So you have to, creative people are always paying attention to everything around them, other things that can apply to solving your problems. Anybody ever want to buy a purse? Not you, sir. A truck, let's say. And then you're thinking about it, and all of a sudden, you see that truck everywhere on the road. Or you see that woman carrying that purse, or that man carrying that purse. I'm not judgmental. And all of a sudden, you start to see it. That's called the Baader-Meinhof Effect. What that means is that your brain is so locked onto this that you're gathering more and more information about it. And before you made the decision that you wanted this, you never saw it. But now you can't get away from it. Now you know you're on the right track, and that's the first step of innovation, when you start having those effects. Unless, of course, you're going crazy, and I can't help you with that. Now, a way to help this part of it is do something called the 5 Ws. Everybody heard of the 5 Ws? You guys are in marketing and communication. Even if you haven't, you have to say yes. I know exactly what that is. The 5 Ws actually were invented. It's 5 Ws and an H. Who, what, where, when, why, how. It was invented by the New York Times back in the turn of the 19th century, late 1800s. They couldn't go into the neighborhoods to get the stories because the neighborhoods were too dangerous. So they would hire children to go in, and they'd say, give me the 5 Ws. Tell me who, what, where, when, why, and how. And you bring that information back out. I'll give you a nickel. And I have enough information to write a complete, balanced story. So these kids would run out into the neighborhoods, gather up these stories that the reporters couldn't get, come out and get paid a nickel. That's where the term cub reporter came from, because they were cubs. They were little children. But this also helps us if we look at whatever we're trying to solve, and we look at the who, what, where, when, why, how, all of that. Answer those questions. It forces us to look at that problem, and we use problem. It forces us to look at it in a way, in a level of detail that we never would have looked at it that way before. Okay, so use that. Answer those questions. Physically, write them down. Type them into your computer. Put them into an Excel spreadsheet. And then expand on them as much as you possibly can. Because what's going to happen is, right in there, in all of those statements, those observations, you'll start to see a solution emerge. It's really weird, but it really works. And I'll show you an example of that at the end. Calculate. You can't do much with calculate except practice. Calculate is when you take all this information in, sooner or later your brain will come up with the right answer. The left side of your brain processes numbers, speech, walking downstairs, driving cars, all of the conscious stuff that we need to have at our fingertips to keep us alive. The right side of our brains handles ideas, concepts, colors, images, music. That's where the creativity is. But the right side of our brain comes up with the solutions, but unless we can communicate that to our conscious side of the brain, our left side, these great ideas can sit here forever. The more we practice, the faster our right side of our brain will come up with answers. And then we come down to this last one, communicate. And this is where we are failing, all of us. And the generation, the millennial generation, the generation that the younger generation is killing themselves because we constantly surround ourselves with noise. Everyone here has come up with good ideas. You ever come up with a good idea? Yeah. When? Shout it out. When do you come up with good ideas? Shower. Shower. That's exactly right. I'll come over, I'll tutor you. Shower. How about exercise? Anybody here exercise? I wouldn't know, but my wife exercises. When you're exercising, when you're running, jogging, how about any time that your brain is turned off? In the shower, you don't have to worry about getting run over by a bus, right? When you're exercising, you don't have to worry a tiger is going to come out of the closet and eat your face. That's when we shut our left side down and allow our right side to communicate. When we go to sleep and those dreams are doing, what they're doing is they're sorting through that information for us. And at night, when the left side of the brain can take some time off, the right side has the ability to communicate. Now, here's where we're killing ourselves. I want you all to do this as an experiment and report back to me. My email is lon@safko. Pretty simple. When you leave the conference, turn your damn radio off. Turn off the music. Stop the noise. If you turn the noise off, you will now allow the right side of your brain to communicate with the left side. Same way it does in a shower, same way it does when you're sleeping. But what happens is we want that constant stimulation. The left brain is the dun, 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 keeping up with the rhythm and keeping up with the words. The right brain says, hey, I got a good idea here. Left brain's not paying any attention at all. So just do that, please, one time, and then send me an email and tell me that it worked, because it will. Stop the noise. Just put yourself in a quiet situation. Go home. Don't turn on the TV. Don't turn on the music. Put yourself in a comfortable position so that both sides of your brain can communicate. Does that make sense? That's the most important part of everything that I'm sharing with you today. I'm going to show you some samples of innovation just to show you. Gosh, I wish you want to sit over here? Okay, you want me to like explain the slides? Okay, this slide has blocks across the top, and it says innovation, and then there's a picture of a cast. No? Okay. Well, I feel bad. You guys are on the side. Okay. I love this stuff. I'm going to show you some examples of some silly stuff that I've invented. And the reason I did, it's mine, so I don't have to worry about copyrights or patents. And it's so simple, you're going to say, geez, if that guy can do it, I can do it twice as better. Garden hose. Anybody have a garden hose? Ever seen a garden hose? Ever used a garden hose? Know anybody that has a garden hose? Yeah? Okay, good. See, there was a pocket of innovation here. I heard it. Absolutely. Now, every time you use a garden hose, what does it do? It tangles up, and it locks onto everything in the yard. You knock over the bird bath. The dog is twisted into it. You fall down, right? You can never get a garden hose to stop twisting. Do you know why it's twisting? Because you're twisting it. You're the one that's causing the problem here. Garden hoses really ticked me off for a long time. And then I realized, if your garden hose is twisted, and you're always trying to straighten them out, then stop doing this with the hose. So I stretched the hose out one day, and my wife says, why don't you do it on a warm day, because the hose will relax better. She edits all of my innovation books, and it's starting to scare me. So I stretched it out, and instead of wrapping it, I just went back and forth. I agree it looks stupid. There's no question about it. But you know what? When I pull the hose off of there, it never tangles anymore because I didn't put the tangles in it. Same thing with extension cords. Same thing with rope. Stop doing that. And I solved that by using the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, why, how. And all of a sudden I realized there's twists in the hose because I put the twists in the hose. And everybody else puts the twist in the hose because it looks pretty that way. Swimming pool. We lived in Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona is 45 degrees for 100 days during the summer. When you put out the cat, that means you have to get a fire extinguisher and put the cat out because it caught fire. It's so hot. So we all have swimming pools. It's a law. Swimming pools and margaritas are a state drink. So the pipe broke underneath the concrete, and the concrete's expensive to replace. So I was like, what am I going to do? The pipe broke. I couldn't use the aerator. Aerators, believe it or not, is so hot that the swimming pool gets as hot as a hot tub, and it's uncomfortable. So we turn it on at night so it sprays through the cooler air to try to make the pool cooler. I know, it's hard to believe. So it took me 9 months of calculation time. I did the collect. I'm doing the calculation, and then finally it dawns on me. All I had to do is find the laser. Okay, I'm not going to push wrong buttons. Right up here is an expansion joint. I got a $4 concrete saw. I cut the expansion joint a little bit wider. I dropped in a new pipe, put some silicone over the top, and I didn't have to damage the concrete at all. And the entire fix was $10 instead of almost $1,000 US. That was worth being creative right there. But the calculation time took me a little bit of time because there wasn't a lot of variables that I could work with. But this worked. Never had to damage the concrete. Let me give you another one. When last night, the air is dry here. You guys got dry air. You're on the Mediterranean. How will you have dry air? There's some kind of a wind that comes through. Is that right? Is it? Okay. So same thing in New York. I grew up upstate New York. And when we turned the heat on in the winter, the air was very dry. My sinuses would get very dry. My throat would get dry. And we could never figure out how to induce moisture. So I came up with this. It's a plastic piece. It could be vacuum molded. It's dishwasher safe. And you simply put it on the vent. You can hang it on the wall or put it on the floor. And you fill it with water. And if you want to put in some essence oils, make the room smell pretty, you can do that. But as the dry air passes over this little tank, it just adds moisture to the room. And it's really inexpensive. We could probably make them in China for 3 cents. Just think differently. If you got to put water into the air, figure out how to do that. Here's another one. Mops. Anybody ever use a mop? Everybody? Okay. Of course you did. When you're done with the mop and it's wet, what do you do? If you leave it on the floor, it gets sour and it stinks. If you stand it up, it drips down the wall and stinks. So there really wasn't a good solution to this. And my wife said, you're the innovator, fix it. I was like, okay. So I came up with this idea. It's a 99-cent bucket. It's $1. I cut a V in it. Come on. Okay, you're going to have to get the slides to actually see it. Hang on. It's the time zone that's messing it up. It's the 220 volts. It wants to run faster. Come on, come on. Don't be leaving. Okay. So here was a solution. Cut a little V in the bucket, put one screw, put it in the wall, and hang the mop like that. The mop part goes into the bucket. The mop drains almost immediately. Goes into the bucket evaporates, so you don't get anything that's smelly and there's no stains because all the yuck goes into the bucket. And you want the mop, you just pick it up and use it. And that's how I mean, it's a simple problem, but it's something that everybody's faced with. What do you do with a wet mop? So the solution's really simple. And again, I'm going to remind you, I'm showing you these because you don't have to invent iPads. Something like this is incredible practice. Not only does it make your life better, but it shows you how simple it'll work. Picking up leaves, real pain in the neck. Use a tarp, make that little piece of wood with a hook on it. You can pick them up in a bundle. You can drag the leaves. Nothing spills back out onto your yard. But the trick is that little piece of wood with a regular hook from your garage. My daughter worked at a restaurant. She liked dangly earrings. But they said that it couldn't be any larger than a quarter. It's a quarter of one of our dollars. It's about this big. So I made this for her. And she wore it. It was dangly. And she almost got fired. Because she said, it's not bigger than a quarter. It's exactly a quarter. 2 dimes and a nickel is 25 cents. That's a quarter. They didn't appreciate that humor at all. But it's not bigger than a quarter, and it's dangly. It serves both purposes. See, so sometimes innovation could just be for the fun of it. This is a logo that I've been using. About 10 years ago, somebody said, you know, you're like a round peg in a square hole. And I thought about it. Yeah, maybe I am. I fit perfectly if you turn the peg sideways. Fits perfect. Be creative. How are we doing on time? Can we talk over? How much? Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. People like fish tanks. People like tabletop fountains. It's that white noise that's so soothing, right? So how come no one's ever thought of putting a fountain on top of a fish tank? Why not? The water's there, the pump is there. Why not have a landscape on top, a nice volcano or tropical sea setting and have it trickle down into the fish tank? You can vacuum form them for almost nothing out of China, you know that. No one's ever thought of that. I think that would be a cool cover for a fish tank because you're getting both, a tabletop fountain and a fish tank. This is innovation by association, too, taking two things that are completely unrelated, but seeing how you can actually put them together into something that makes sense. Trash can liner. Got the trash can on the top right. Take an apple, throw it in. What happens? Yeah, right? Okay, you get a prize. How about a house in the country? House in the country. It's only paper, but next time it'll be a real house. Yeah, okay, so you throw a pop can or you throw an apple in it immediately, and that really ticks me off. Why not take a couple of rubber bands and a paper clip and make it any size you want, put it around the darn bag, and the bag won't fall in the garbage. I mean, I was sitting there looking at my desk drawer and my garbage can at the same time. It's like, I'm embarrassed I didn't think of this 20 years ago. You can make it for any size trash can. Big ones, small ones, you just add more rubber bands. That's innovation at the very simplest level. And if you can learn to do that, it is so much fun, it's going to encourage you to create the next Apple. Everybody's got these. Europe, it's a big deal, right? I like these. It gets water in places that you can't normally get with the other kind. You don't want to see it, never mind. So if you got this, why not do something like this? Come on, give it a second. She's laughing. She's laughing. Don't tell me why, but why not do that? Why not different kinds of vacuum attachments? I mean, it doesn't have to be vacuum. Why not a loofah or one that disperses soap? Because when you got the soap and you're trying to wash it off, it doesn't necessarily wash off easily. But what if you had a nice little brush that you can exfoliate? Never mind. You can tell I like showers. But I mean, they snap on, right? What would that cost? You just make them to fit the heads. And they could all pop into a little rack like little vacuum attachments do, right there in the shower, and they're all waterproof. Increase the value of that particular product. Here's something. You've seen those little warning signs. My wife's car broke down on a California freeway. Hold on. You don't want to never have that happen. And we couldn't use these because every time a truck came by, it would go bonk. Well, that's not working. So I tried to come up with an idea, something that she can keep in her car that didn't take up a lot of room and didn't cost a lot of money. Anybody ever see these? Where you punch it and it flies back? What if you turned it into a highway cone? The truck comes by, blows it over, pops right back up again. When you're not using it, you take the air out of it and compresses to something this big and maybe this square. So it'll fit in your trunk. And again, it's just polyvinyl chloride, so you can have it probably manufactured for about 10 cents. Ain't that kind of, see, fun, right? Not necessarily solving big solutions, not big technical solutions, but it's a great way to practice. Granddaughters came over. And if anybody has young children or grandchildren, anybody have children? Why? Can anybody tell me why? When we got our grandkids, we didn't realize how great they were. And if we knew how good they were going to be, we would have skipped the kids and gone right to the grandkids. So she was 8 years old, and she says, Papa Monkey Head. By the way, that's okay. It's out of the bag. That's my name, Papa Monkey Head. Can I color a drawing for you? I said, please. So she gets her color crayons out, gets all ready, and she says, okay. I said, I want you to do a really good job for me, but I want you to color outside of the lines. She was 8 years old, so I know that her whole life, all she ever heard was stay inside the lines. You know what, to be honest with you, I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. I had no idea how she was going to process that information. My wife is looking at me, you're going to cause serious brain damage to these kids by doing this. So she colored it. This is not the one. The one that she did is so much better. It was on the refrigerator for so long. You know, they have museums now with children art, and it's all refrigerators with art pasted on it. So what she did is she took the most brilliant crayons, a neon color, and traced around the black lines on the outside of the shapes. And because of the bright color next to the black against the white, it was going, whoa, whoa. It was like pulsating. It was the coolest thing. Next time you go to a restaurant, do they have the little children things they give you crayons to keep the kids quiet? Yeah, and they give you a Diamond Tap and Benadryl and other things to keep the kids quiet. You do one of them and color outside the lines. To me, it was the most fascinating result of an experiment that I ever saw. It really worked. All I did was opposite. Don't color in the lines, color outside the lines. And I went and waited to see what happened. And it was spectacular. So sometimes in your life, you have to color outside of the lines. Real estate business card I did for a company. All people care about is the monthly payment, the mortgage payment. So why not put the amount borrowed and the interest rate? That way you can pick the interest rate and the amount, and you know exactly what your monthly payment is. A guy invited me out to lunch about a couple of months ago, and his client had this business card in his wallet for more than 10 years after he bought a house from the representative, because every time he went to look at a house, he pulled this out so he'd know what his monthly payment was going to be. Just simple ideas. Okay, now here's the final part of this. I want to see if you guys can create a $1 million idea. What's the money here in Slovenia? Oh, Europe, yeah, of course, that was dumb. I'm embarrassed. Okay, yeah, this is a €1 million idea, but you guys are going to come up with it. I was working for the Port of San Diego, and I was asked, Port of San Diego and airport, I was asked to do something that would get kids and families and people involved in the port. So I asked, how much of a staff? Well, yeah, you don't have any staff. Oh, just me, okay. How much of a budget? Well, you don't have any budget. Okay, so I got nobody and no money, but you want me to do this incredible thing. Yeah, okay, let's give it a shot. So here's what I did. And yes, you guys can do this too, because you're going to do it right now. Sit on the table. Okay. I started with a dry erase board. That is the best place to come up with great ideas. Dry erase board, because if you come up with a stupid one, you go, no, I was only kidding. And you could erase it. So I started with the board and I said, okay, I need to get the families. I want families to understand what we provide the community, because they didn't understand. So the first thing we got to do is go after kids. What did McDonald's? First thing that they did, Happy Meal. Yeah, the parents, the kids wanted Happy Meals, so they beat all the other competitors. Second thing they did, Habit Trail, or those hamster things that the kids crawl in, whatever. Great idea. What did Apple do when they first came out with the very first computer? Put them in elementary schools. If you can steal the kids, the parents will, well, okay, let me rephrase that. If you can appeal to kids, the parents will follow. So I knew that we had to go after kids. It was the best way to get everyone else. Okay, families, schools, whatever. So now here comes the questions. What do kids like to do? Scream, yes, yes. And that gets back to why a parent. Yes, I completely, why have kids? What do kids like to do? Play. Who said play? Where? Hand. Okay, well, you get a prize. You look like a pickup truck kind of a guy. Yeah, kids like to play. Let's see what the survey says. We have a game show in the United States. Survey says, play, you're all winners. Ding, 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 ding. What do kids like to play with? Toys, right? Toys? Who said toys? You said toys. You are, let's see, kind of a giraffe. Would you like a giraffe? Okay. Yeah, you thought you'd get it, didn't you? Survey says, toys. Now, one of the things that I learned with young children is they play, they can use their imagination quite a bit. But when it gets down to it, they like tactical toys. They like Legos and dolls and action figures, right? Tactical, real things, tangible things. So I knew that whatever I come up with had to be tangible. What is the only thing connected to your computer that will create something tangible and 3D printers don't count? What is the only thing? A printer. Who said printer? Even if you didn't, if you want one of the gifts, put your hand up first, quick. Oh, he said printer over there. That was a tough question, so I'm going to give you two. A printer. So I knew that I had to involve a printer somehow to make it tangible. Okay. Oh, and we use the internet. What is the only free distribution method that we have? I'm not talking about pay-per-click and all that other pay stuff, but the internet. So we have the internet, we create a tangible tool and a printer. So that just by doing this, literally at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, I wrote this on the board, and I just did the who, what, where, when, why, and this is what I found. I got to do something that, we got to get kids, we got to do something that they can play with, it's got to be a toy, it's got to be distributed over the internet, and it's got to be tangible, which means it comes out of the printer. That was all I had to work with. And there it is. That's the summary. Okay, so what did that actually mean? Back in 1999, I filed for a US patent on distributing three-dimensional objects over the internet. I was awarded 3 US patents for this idea. United Airlines was one of my first clients. We created, and that's their plane, 3 pages in a PDF. You can print it on any printer with a little glue and a little scissors. It built into an 11-inch wingspan, actual Boeing 737 airplane with the United colors on it. So we cut a deal with United, and we said, we'll only charge you 10 cents every time somebody downloads one of these specialty advertising products, right? That's what it is. It's like a coffee mug or a T-shirt. I'll do the fulfillment. I'll do the manufacturing. You don't have to ship anything. You don't have to manufacture anything. It'll be distributed over the internet, and you're only going to pay 10 cents. 30 days later, they came back, and they said, we're sorry, we can't live up to our contract. I said, but it's only 10 cents, 1/10 of an American dollar. They said, yeah, but we had 750,000 downloads. OMG! Yeah. So I couldn't believe it. So the next thing we did is we did British Airways, we did General Motors, we did Kia, San Diego Zoo, Department of Interior, because we were able to distribute 3-dimensional product replicas of their cars, of their airplanes, of whatever their products or services were. And we built this company. Just out of a simple idea on a whiteboard. You saw how simple, and you guys came up with the answers. And to date, we had over 50,000 customers and generated over $1 million in US revenue, just by doing that simple exercise. Here's the final takeaway. I've been giving your brains time to communicate from right to left. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding with you. Here's the deal. Everybody's got the same marketing tools. Everybody knows what it is. You all know Facebook, Instagram. You know how to use them. You know what Google AdWords. You know how to do pay-per-click. You know how to do all this stuff. Everybody knows how to do it equally. No, there is no edge. Maybe keywords. But other than that, there's no edge. There's no competitive differentiation. The only thing that's going to differentiate is innovation, is creativity. When you look at videos that are successful on YouTube, and you look at the campaigns, you look at the US Super Bowl ads. Do you guys look at those? In Marcom, you should look at those, because it's the greatest minds in the world putting together 30 seconds, $6 million for 30 seconds of airtime. But it's the most creative stuff on earth. That's what separates us. And that's what I want you to do, is to take the tools that everybody else has. Embrace innovation. Embrace these tools that I've given you. Become innovative. And kick their butts. You guys can do it. Thank you very much. Thank you.